enlarge or you know, expand. What about rehabilitation of sewer systems? Say this thing is gone, you know, it's time to replace, regardless of if it develops anything economic.
That's exactly what the case was last week.
Okay.
So indeed, you can certainly do that. I brought some samples of actual, you know, TIF revenues that I wanted to just really quickly share. There's a wind TIF in existence that, in terms of projects, municipal projects, one of them was broadband access for the entire municipality. Okay. Administrative costs and professional services, 100,000. The broadband was 500,000. You know, in terms of TIF revenues within law, you can use them to fund reasonable administrative, prorate administrative time for your municipal staff. You can also use TIF revenues to fund an economic development office and the salaries of the staff in that office. They had road parking infrastructure, recreational trails, education, skill training at municipality-wide. That's one of the allowable, again, the 3 tiers municipality-wide, scholarships for the residents of the municipality, revolving loan fund, and just funding of programs in general. They expected that it would be $1 million. And they were going to apply for federal grants, and they requested permission to take TIF revenues and use them to match any federal grants that they may get. And let me see what else I can do in terms of signage, road improvements, sewer replacement funds. Sand and salt shed. Again, more road improvements, recreation trails, employment training, general economic development. You could, in terms of economic development, you could, if you had an event that marketed the municipality as a business location to attract more business to the town, you could actually use TIF revenues for that. Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
So you give percentage back to the developer through the credit enhancement agreement. Are there any limits to what the developer can do with the money you give back to them?
Well, you have control over, you know, what the arrangement is with the developer, and you know, typically, I mean, to make something up, you know, let's say the developer couldn't take TIF revenues and send them out of state for something completely unrelated to the project. In other words, the project is very specific. The company or developer project is very, very specific and is delineated in that program that residents get to vote.
Right, well, I guess where I was going, typically these wind projects have a negotiated tangible benefit that's pretty much out, seems like it's outside the tax base, outside the TIF, something that comes from the developer to the town. I believe the Carthage one had like $4,000 a tower, and they were given, I think, $60,000 to do something up at the state park. So I guess my question would be, can you do a credit enhancement agreement, give money back to a developer, and have the developer basically give it back to the town through a credit, through a tangible benefit, and thereby it's not tied to a specific TIF project, a revolving fund, a sewer treatment plant that basically would be used for whatever purpose the town.
Well, you know what's coming to mind right now, and I think this may be sort of what you're asking me, is I have seen some credit enhancement agreements where the town has asked for some additional things that the developer agreed to do. For example, the developer agreed to fund the administrative costs of the TIF. So it's like any other agreement, or, you know, I said earlier that somebody had described it to me as a prenup. Really, if you think that it's the only legal document in the TIF process, is two parties coming to the table and you ask for what you want, they ask for, the other side asks for what they want, and between the two of you, you figure it out and you design it. And so long as it's within the allowable projects, you know, for in the TIF world, it's whatever you work out.
In the case of a wind project, can you tell me, is there any real reason the town should give them anything back? Why couldn't the town say, we're going to do a TIF, the town is going to keep 100% of it and use it for our own projects, and the developer gets nothing?
You can't do that.
You'd be building a civic center for Oxford County in this case. It's quite a bit of money to be spending. I mean, locally, I don't know if you can get that many approved projects.
Well, could the town say, well, we're going to do a 50% capture? But
Yes,
but
you can customize them, as she said, yes.
You can customize them. It's
Yeah.
whatever you negotiate with the
So there's no,
company.
unless you particularly want to give that company money, there's no reason the town has to give the company money as part of that enhancement agreement.
Well, in theory, the developer or company comes to the table with so many benefits, X number of benefits, or a certain proposal that the town and the people in the town find to such great benefit that you are happy to agree to what the company is asking in exchange for, you know, what you negotiate in the credit enhancement agreement. For example, again, we can go back to the municipalities that stipulated, okay, you know, that all sounds great, but we want to make sure that the development takes place, so until we see $2 million in new investment, there's not going to be any revenue going back to the company.
So it might be reasonable to say, until we see 25 local jobs come out of this, we're not getting anything back. That might be something that could be in a credit enhancement agreement.
Absolutely. As I said earlier, you can have job-related clawbacks. You have to, you know, evaluate the particular business. You know, typically, for example, there could be a company that's going to make wood pellets, and they project that as a result of the benefit of getting their property taxes back to help generate that economic development. They're going to be able to, you know, create 50 jobs. Okay, so in the credit enhancement agreement, you stipulate that, you know, if 5 years later we don't, you know, we see 30 jobs, that's great. But if we see 25, we're going to claw back 5% of the company allocation of TIF revenues. Okay? Yes, Mr. Go ahead.
I want to get back to the tangible benefits that Mr. Harvey was referring to, especially Carthage. That $4,000 per turbine is state law. And
That's
it kicks in
expedited
on-
permitting.
Right. There has to be, because they've adopted a law that any project over 20 megawatts in size, the town will receive $4,000 per turbine per year. And that's independent of property taxes. That you can put right in the general fund. But the kicker is it has to be 20 megawatts or larger. And on the wind projects, well, I just find it odd, this credit enhancement agreement, when wind projects grab so much subsidy money from federal subsidy money. Isn't that just another handout to them from the municipal level, when they've already got this big handout from the federal level To me, I mean, how many handouts do they need?
Well, that's up to you to determine whether there's enough value, whether you consider a handout. Again, we don't weigh in. We don't opine on a particular TIF or a proposed TIF. That's up to you to determine, what the value is in it to you. Again, really every single TIF is unique. Even if you look at 3 wind power TIFs, they're not all going to be the same. Okay.
Are they all public records?
After they're approved, they are public record. So I think what I did, if memory serves, after the first time you and I got off the phone, I emailed you a copy of the very last wind TIF that had received local approval and was approved by my commissioner. And I brought a backup copy with me tonight of the entire application, as well as a copy of the draft credit enhancement agreement. If you like, what I can do is sort of read off to you some of the sample projects that I can sort of recapture, some of the details from this application that was approved for a wind TIF. And again, Jean, I'm pretty sure that I sent you also a copy of the head credit enhancement agreement. The credit enhancement agreement, again, there's a lot of standard language, but that's when people come in with a technical background, whether attorney or consultant, that, or economic, sometimes in some cases, the economic development office staff has so much experience with TIFs that they can just, work up their own proposals. Would you like for me to sort of quickly, recap the details of this? Okay, in this case, it was a 30-year TIF. This is in Hancock County. The original assessed value of that particular property was $225,000. Okay. They decided they were going to capture 100% of both the real and the personal property. They executed a credit enhancement agreement, which was limited to 20 years. And they specified in the credit enhancement agreement and in the program that the town meeting would vote upon that it was, limited to incremental taxes as a result of new value. In other words, if nothing happens there and taxes are being paid, the company doesn't get a check unless they actually generate new value. And also, what they stipulated is that they projected that the project was going to be about $4.8 million. Let me see what else. In terms of expenditures, broadband access, administrative, professional services would include architectural plans, legal fees, the cost of, let's say that a TIF district is voted into place and you decide to have, I think somebody had asked in terms of monitoring the TIF, let's say that if a TIF goes into existence, you vote it, and part of the proposal could be that we want to have a meeting every 4 months after the TIF is in place to report to us where the TIF is at. You could use TIF revenues for that purpose as well. And public safety improvements, radio, cell service, broadband access, which we discussed before. In this case, recreational trails, education, skill training, and again, the revolving loan fund that we mentioned before. Again, it doesn't mean you have to have all those things.